how are you? Hello everyone! Teacher Joe here. Come, let's learn together!
For students in this class, Language, Culture and Society, as an introduction to the world of language and linguistics, we've been exploring the great diversity of world languages and getting understanding of their characteristics and relationships. We learn to appreciate language as an object of scientific study and are able to apply our new knowledge as we interact in our society. We also get to know the relationship of linguistic variation to social and cultural diversity. It is likewise a very interesting and important topic to discuss something about animal and machine as another language or system of communication. With this, we'll have an added understanding and distinction of human language versus animal system of communication and get some understanding about computer language and how humans communicate with machines as they are now vital parts of our more and more advancing society. We've been living with animals and robots or machines, and they play vital roles in our personal, domestic, social, and even in livelihood and industrial aspects of our lives. Knowing other communication systems and understanding non-human language that can be known to man is a plus factor to an English language teacher to be able to have a stronger and a wider impartation of knowledge to young language learners. Let us tackle the difference between animal and human communication. Animals generally communicate using signals classified in four methods: visual, auditory or sound-based, tactile or touch-based cues, and chemical involving pheromones. Some species rely more on one form of communication over another. However, there are all various methods to show affection, ward off threats, or attract a mate. Communication behaviors can help animals find mates, establish dominance, defend territory, coordinate group behavior, and care for young. Now, can animals understand humans? They use the right side of their brains to understand tone and pitch. The study showed dogs understand words and how they are said. Attila Andik said he thinks other animals probably can understand human language like dogs do. But those animals are not very interested in what humans have to say. Brian here is a professor of evolutionary anthropology at Duke University. He called one of the findings a shocker. The brain imaging showed dogs process words using the left side of their brains just as humans do. They use the right side of their brains to understand tone and pitch. The study showed dogs understand words and how they are said. Meaningful words said in a neutral way did not have the same effect as the same words said in an encouraging way. Dog brains care about both what we say and how we say it, he said. Researchers say they think dogs are tuned into what people say because dogs have lived with people for a long time. Now let's have a glance with these differences. Now let's have these differences between animal and human communication. When it comes to duality of patterning, humans, distinctive sounds called phonemes are arbitrary and have no meaning. But humans can string these sounds in an infinite number of ways to create meaning via words and sentences, while other animals do not communicate by arranging arbitrary sounds, which limits the number of messages they can create. And when it comes to creativity, new words can be invented easily by humans, while in animals, they have to evolve in order for their signs to change. And talking about displacement, humans can talk about remote, abstract, or imaginary things that aren't happening in their immediate environments, while animals Communication is context-driven. They react to stimuli or indexes. Now let's talk about interchangeability. For humans, any gender of human can use the same languages, while for animals, certain animal communications in the animal world can only be used by one gender of that animal. And for cultural transmission, humans acquire language culturally. Words must be learned, while with the animals, the way that they communicate are biological or inborn. When it comes to arbitrariness, human language is symbolic, using a set number of sounds, phonemes, and characters or like alphabet, which allows ideas to be recorded and preserved. While animals, communication is not symbolic, so it cannot preserve ideas of the past. Talking about biology, for humans, on a purely biological level, the human voice box and tongue are very unique and are required to make the sounds we recognize as language. Yeah. And for animals, other animals have different biological structures which impact the way they make sounds or the way they make sounds. And talking about ambiguity, for us humans, a word or sign can have several meanings. And yes, we know that. And for animals, every sign has only one meaning. And when it comes to variety, human language can arrange words into an infinite number of ideas, sometimes referred to as discrete infinity, while for animals, they only have a limited number of combinations and they can use them to communicate. Now here are some of those differences, and we're talking about human speech versus animals. Number one, the intention to communicate. When they use their own call signs, do animals or birds consciously intend to communicate with one another as humans do? Or is the sound merely an instinctive reaction to their momentary situation? When a human uses the voice signals that he has learned, he intends to convey something to his hearers, unless of course he is singing in the bath. And he will stop if he notices that one is listening. The jack, though, however, does not care if another is listening. It merely emits the sound as an instinctive reflex action, just as human will yawn when tired. Number two, mobility of the signal. Most animal signals are not what linguists or students of language call mobile or separable from the situation that prompts the signal. The gibbon, for example, uses its danger call only when danger actually exists. Animal signals are also fixed in the sense that the animal does not, in general, listen to the sound it makes and then try to modify it into another sound. Certain birds, it is true, are able to mimic sounds that are not in their inborn vocabulary. They can learn to copy sounds made by other birds or even those made by humans, like the parrot that says, "Pretty Polly." However, Lawrence insists that birds rarely manage to associate consciously even one of the word sounds that they had learned with a certain action, and then never to any practical purpose. Number two, mobility of the signal. One old gray parrot called Gear, who had quite a large human vocabulary, including saying some German words, Auf Wiedersehen. I don't know if I've said it right. Probably that part is really good. In a deep, benevolent voice whenever anyone got up to leave. never did learn to say food when he was hungry and drink when he was thirsty. This lack of mobility is even more noticeable with the bee's dance. This is a sort of sign language akin to semaphore flagging, and men have even succeeded in using it to communicate with the insects. The explorer bee indicates distance to the flowers by the speed of his dance, thus showing the effort required and direction by its axis in relation to the sun. However, this is all that can be transmitted. Each sign, the meaning of which is fixed, cannot be separated and used in other ways for little chats about how's the weather over there, or seen any beautiful flowers lately? Number 3, make-up of language. The big deficiency of animal codes is that they lack the creative capacity that enables humans to produce and understand sentences that they have never heard before, and that may never have even been uttered before. This is due to the way human language is made up. Speech has what is called a double structure. By that, we mean that human utterances can be broken down into smaller units. First, into units of meaning or single words, and secondly, into sound units called phonemes. Phonemes can be used to construct other words having nothing to do with the original one. Suppose, for example, that an animal had a call sign for meat. Now that call, whatever it was, would mean meat and nothing else. But the English word meat not only can be used to signify the flesh of an animal, but also can be separated into 3 distinct sound units or phonemes, M, E, and T. Those 3 phonemes can then be used to make all sorts of other words, team and me, as well as eat, tea, meaty, and so on. Thus, fewer than 50 sound units in English have been combined to make up over 500,000 word units, and new words are being formed all the time. The words in turn can be combined to form an infinite number of sentences. This brings us to another facet of language composition, the idea of grammar. Grammar is the makeup of language in another sense, the network of relationships between individual words and the rules governing those relationships. Knowing or sensing the rules lets us make these different combinations and produce understandable sentences, despite our maybe never having heard any exactly like them before. And just think of the complexity, yes. Even a simple sentence, for example, will consist of at least one subject-predicate relationship. In the sentence from the children's story, this little pig went to market, the subject or one talked about is this little pig. What is said about him, namely that he went to market, is the predicate. Animal codes do not link thoughts in this fashion. In contrast with animals, not only can humans grasp this and all the animals' grammatical relationship of word groups, but we can also vary them to express different points of view. For example, we can affirm that the little pig went to market, but we can also deny it simply by making what is called a negative transformation. This little pig did not go to market. We can change it from past to present. This little pig is going to market. Or we can make it a question. Did the little pig go to market? Or one simple sentence is thus the basis for a great many or others that we do not have to learn individually. Number 4, objectivity. To make the transformations required by everyday life, the speaker must be able to keep his distance, so to speak, from the message, not relating each element only to himself. This is called objectivity. Instead of being able to say only, I put the blue box on the red box, for example, the objective communicator is able to say the blue box is on the red box. Hence, when things go wrong with the human brain, the ability to make objective transformations often fails. Due to this, some schizophrenics, for example, have difficulty in making the negative transformation. Given the sentence, he will eat apples, and being asked to make it negative by adding not, they will often produce he will eat pears, or oranges, or some other fruit instead of he will not eat apples. Although certain chimpanzees have been trained to use simplified sign, not spoken, systems that men have invented for them after hundreds of hours of trainings, they still have very limited ability to make such objective transformations. They cannot go beyond the objectivity of about a 2-year-old child. But remember that what a little control human babies have at that age develops without any specialized training at all. And their ability to use all the progressively more complex language procedures in just a few more years leaves the chimps far, far behind. Number 5. Source of language. Noam Chomsky, a prominent linguist, has suggested that this unique language ability must, to a certain extent, be innate or built in from birth. How else, he asked, are we to explain the rapidity and complexity of language development in small children with as yet undeveloped powers? Adults who try learning a new language can appreciate the enormity of their accomplishment. The Encyclopedia Britannica says, it is, therefore, clear that all normal humans bring into the world an innate faculty for language acquisition, language use, and grammar construction. The human child is very soon able to construct new, grammatically acceptable sentences from material he has already heard. Unlike the parrot in human society, he is not limited to the mere repetition of whole utterances. Animals do not have this built-in sense for language acquisition. Even the highly trained chimpanzees of recent fame have used only simple sign systems devised by humans, while their own natural communications are generally mere reflex signals, largely single calls and gestures. Now, let's talk about these 5 major differences between human language and animal communication, as some researchers found. As some researchers are saying. A translating machine once took the English expression out of sight, out of mind, and rendered it to another language as invisible idiot. Did that mean that the machine had snapped a gear? No. It was making a very pardonable mistake. It was also highlighting one of the many factors that make human language unique among known methods of communication: its complexity. To the machine, out of sight was in a certain sense to be invisible. To be out of your mind was to be mad or an idiot, and yet out of sight, out of the mind does not mean invisible idiot. It is this sort of thing that gives inventors of translating machines headaches. Of course, it is not only complexity that makes human speech unique. There are many other factors involved, so many that some scientists maintain that instead of labeling man Homo sapiens, or human with wisdom, it would be more appropriate to label them, or him, Homo loquens, or human who talks. But someone may protest, have they forgotten all the recent research in animal communication system or systems? Humans speak, yes, but so do animals in their own fashion. Dolphins whistle, bees dance, birds have distinctive call notes, and some can even imitate human speech. And what about the monkeys that have recently learned some sign language? Although their way of communicating might not work in quite the same way as humans, surely the purpose and results are the same, are they not? Well, yes and no. Yes, they do communicate, and no, as a rule, the purpose and results are not the same. Much research has gone into this question. The different call sounds made by creatures as varied as gibbons, geese, and dolphins have been catalogued. In some cases, even worked into a sort of vocabulary. Gibbons apparently have 9 calls or so, and dolphins more. Dolphins even appear to have different dialects according to where they live. Interesting. Yet, there are several vital differences between humans' speech and that of the animals, even beyond the obvious fact that human language is immeasurably more complex.